This video was originally part of a live training to demonstrate how a teacher would conduct a practice test session with their students. This process applies to both the CAASPP and the ELPAC.
All right, guys. So today we're going to learn how you're going to log in to take the assessments that we have to take as a school next week. And what happens is once I give you what we call a session ID on the given day of testing, I'm going to have you log out and go to the secure browser. So today we're going to learn what steps you need to do so that you can pop up into the test and I'll be able to see you and talk with you through the test itself. So at this time, what I need you all to do is to turn off your cameras. Stay in the Zoom meeting with me, but go ahead and turn off your cameras because we're going to use those inside of our testing. On my screen, I would then pull up the practice and training tests. I always use the ELPAC site just because it's right there in front of you. You can go to CAASPP or you can go to the ELPAC site to pull up the login for the test administrator for the practice tests. And I would come in as a test administrator and I would set myself up. And by the way, Tyler, while I'm doing this, just a heads up, I will be asking you in a little bit to share your screen as a student. So as a test examiner, test administrator, I would pick a practice test, would pick third, fourth, and fifth, because I don't remember what grades I gave my students. And I'm going to select my remote test. This turns on our remote widgets like we've talked in the past. So yes, everything with the exception of initial ELPAC needs to be using remote. And I'm going to start my practice session. So guys, I'm sharing my screen with you. So now you, as my students, can see what I'm doing. But what I'm really going to need you to do is in a moment, I'm going to give you a link that you'll be able to use for today. And that'll help you get to where you need to be so you can log into the test. On the real testing day, I won't be able to give you this link. And what'll happen is when I give you the time to go, you will leave me and the Zoom meeting and you'll jump out and you will then jump into the test assessment doing what we do today. So I just put the link into the chat and you can all click on it and it will open up a web browser for you. And the test session for today will automatically already be in there. Now, when we're doing this for real, I will give you this test session ID on the day, and I'm going to ask each of you to write it down. And before you leave the Zoom meeting, you're going to hold it up for me so I can see that you have the right test session ID. For today, we don't have to worry about that. But I'm going to turn on my camera inside of here, which means I'll turn it off there. Okay. So now I'm inside here and I'm going to ask all my students, did you get the link that I sent you and were you able to open up the web browser?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And I'm just waiting for one other student to answer me there. As you can see, my students are really excited about this, but that's really how it's going to be on that day as well. So what I'm now going to say to my students is on your screen, you should see something that looks very similar to this. And you will already have a session ID here. So what I need each of my students to do is to type in your first name on that first line, and then underneath that 9-digit number that we worked with you on and we got you through your mail, I need you to type in that 9-digit SSID number for me. So you'll go ahead and type that in. And then the session ID for today is already filled in. So once you have your first name and your SSID typed in, you can hit the sign in button. Let me know if you have any problems with that.
Hey Bob, if I forgot my SSID, are you able to private message me?
I can. Thank you for asking that. And yes, I will private message it to you right now so that you can have it and none of the other students will see it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, once you've signed in, the first screen you're going to see is going to ask you to look at your information and make sure that you have the correct information. And that's where you should be. So I'm going to ask all my students to stay in pace with me. Don't go faster than I am. If on that screen, it shows your name, your grade, and your school, you can go ahead and click to go on to the next screen. And at this point, Tyler, once your name is off the screen, I'll ask you to share your screen with us.
What if my information isn't right?
Well, then I will send you a private message and give you back your SSID number and your first name. And then I'll ask you to try that again. And I'm going to ask each of my students to go ahead and select that arrow. Now, what's going to happen is on my screen, I get to see each of my students signing in. So I see all of you coming in, and I'm now going to approve you in the test. And this is how it works on the real day. I will approve you in. Now, do me a favor, Tina, don't go any further past this screen. I'm seeing everybody jumping in, so that's great. Now, all of you can see Tina's screen. What I'm going to do is we'll walk through each step with Tina, and then I'll ask you to do it on your own computer. So Tina, do you see the box where it says, I agree to grant the browser permission to access the camera?
Yes.
I need you to check that box.
Okay.
And then because we're not in the real test, it's going to ask you if it's okay to use your camera. So go ahead and select allow in the top left corner there.
Okay.
And again, you won't have to do this on the actual day. Your camera will automatically turn on. But because we're using this practice test, I need you to click on the camera itself. In the middle of that, yeah, right there.
Okay.
And we should see you pop up here. There we go. So now all of my students, what I want you to do is take a moment and do the exact same steps. You're going to check that little box that says I agree. You will hit allow for the camera, and then you'll click on the camera in the center of your screen. Now at this point, your students could be talking with you and asking you questions because they're still in the Zoom meeting. You'll be able to answer their questions. And if a child is having issues, you could change out who's sharing the screen, and you could actually walk a student who's struggling through the checks. All right, so my students have told me that they're all ready to move on. So I'm going to ask Tina, go ahead and check the green box that says I see myself,
Okay.
and then hit continue. Oh, or scroll up, either one works. So now, students, what I need you to do is we're going to check your microphone to make sure your microphone works, because once you're in the test, you can use that and we can do a video call. In order to check the microphone, all I need you to do is to click on the picture of the microphone and just tell us what you're wearing today and then stop it.
I am wearing a gray sweater.
Go ahead and hit the stop button. Wonderful. Now go ahead and hit the play button to make sure the recording works.
I am wearing a gray sweater.
And now I'm going to ask the rest of my students to go ahead and do those steps on your own computer. Mute your Zoom meeting with me, because we don't want to hear everybody doing that, because if you have a class of 20 kids, you would have 20 students all saying it. Once my students were done with that, I would say, Tina, go ahead and hit the I heard my recording. Click on that for me. Click continue. Just so everybody knows, if you click on continue, it actually scrolls the screen up for you. All right, so now we're on step number 3. All you have to do here is to check to make sure the video and the sound is working on your computer, and you do that by clicking the box in the center of the video. And then you would hit the I could play the sound and video. Again, I would pause at this point to let the rest of my students do it, and have any questions, I could work them through the questions. Once I hit I could play the sound and video, I would then hit continue. And then the last check, students, the last check that you're going to have is to see if your text-to-speech is working. Now, even if you don't have it in the test where it can read it to you, the text-to-speech needs to work, because I'll send you messages through the test and the computer will read them to you. In order to check, all you have to do is select the little round circle of the speaker.
This text is being read aloud.
If that works, we're fine. If you don't like the sound of that voice, if you want to hear a woman speaking to you, you can pull down that little menu and change over to, I think it's 0. And then you can also lower the volume, pitch, and rate. So once you as a student are happy with the way the voice sounds, I would ask you to select on I heard the voice, and then finally hit continue. And again, at this point, I would stop and allow all of my students to get caught up and that we have it all together. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is your instructions page. If you need help in the test, when you click on the little question mark, you'll come back here, and this is where you can get a little extra help as far as instructions and how to do certain things within the test. So at this point, it's a practice test, so we're fine. I'm going to ask my students to all select begin test now. So at this point, because we are in a Zoom meeting, and I'm not going to take you through all of these steps, but at this point, I would say as a test examiner, I would take the time to show them how the remote widget works. So I would have my students take their mouse down to where the remote widget is in the bottom right corner, and they'll see that when they put their mouse over, they can move it. I would walk them through all the steps. I would say to all of my students, go ahead and move your remote widget around the screen by clicking on the arrows. And because we're in Zoom, if they have any questions, this is the time where they could chime in and say, you know, hey, Mr. Martin, I don't know how to do this. And I could walk them through it. And then I would ask them all to raise their hands for me so that I can see they know how to use the raise hand by clicking on their video and then finding the raise hand icon. And I would ask my students to do that. So I would show them how to raise their hands. I would then also show them how to send me a text message as well. And I would walk them through all these steps. And the nice thing is, because you have a student, of course, you want a student that you know is pretty solid with the technology, that you can do this and have them sharing their screen. This is a practice test, so everybody can see the questions. It's not a problem. And then what I would finally show them is how I could do a video chat with them. And I would actually start a video chat. And I would have a conversation, but all of my students could see that I'm talking with Tina and that's how it would work with them. And at this point, you could take a few moments and play a little bit with your students and let them, you know, raise their hand, send you a text message, and you could do some video chatting with them. And of course, then I would turn off the video chat as well. So this is what I would do to get my students comfortable. It might take a couple of tries to do it. It takes about 10, 15 minutes. And then to really make it a solid lesson and make sure, and again, I wouldn't do all this on the same day. I would do it on a few different days. If you have some asynchronous time, that would be a perfect time to try to do this. But then as a final step, I would open up an interim assessment. I would give them the test session ID, and then I would ask them to go into the secure browser by whatever means they go into the secure browser and pop up in the test so I can ensure that all my students are able to do it.